This is Polyamory Weekly, episode 601. Coming up on today's show, shifting from hierarchy to equality. That's coming up on today's show. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Minx. Sitting in the co-host chair today is Lusty Guy.
Happy and lucky to be here, as always.
So happy I don't have to do the show alone. It's just not as much fun doing a solo show.
I know. I miss being in the last show.
I know. Well, this is an adult show about really lascivious things like honesty and communication about sex and relationships. So if you're under 18, please stop listening now and visit scarletteen.com. We have some fun stuff for the host chat section.
I know you certainly squeed when this came in.
I squeed when I heard this. So a listener whose name I don't have permission to use or I haven't double checked, so we're just going to say a listener, HMN, wrote in and said he was listening to episode 189 of the Normalizing Non-Monogamy podcast, and the interviewee, Brea, said your book, 8 Things I Wish I Knew About Polyamory, was their Bible. And I'm like, bah! And also, Normalizing Non-Monogamy, there are so many poly podcasts out there, I can't even keep up with all of them. We have to reach out to these folks and see if they want to do a mashup.
We do, and she literally vibrated when she listened to that text. We noticed it was on like episode,
189.
189.
There's a poly podcast out there that has nearly 200 episodes, and I'm just now finding out about it.
Congratulations on the nearly 200 episodes.
Congratulations. Oh, and by the way, here was the clip.
For 4 years before I'd even heard of the book, The Ethical Slut. Like, you know, I was 4 years into being poly and having polyamorous relationships before somebody was like, hey, Brea, have you ever read the book Ethical Slut? And I'm like, no, what's that? I need to read that. And, or the other book that really helped me was 8 Things I Wish I Knew About Polyamory before I tried and fracked it up. And that is my Bible now. That is you think you want to date me? You think you want to be about this polyamorous lifestyle? Okay, well, you have to read this book. And if you can't get through this 80-page book, then I'm sorry, we can't be together, because this is not going to be the first book I put under your nose until you have to read it. So,
I mean, come on. How is that not supposed to make me squee with delight? That is so cool.
It is fun to watch her squee. Thank you for saying that.
Thank you for letting me know, HMN. And thank you, folks who create the Normalizing Non-Monogamy podcast. And we'll hopefully be reaching out to you soon to see if we can collaborate or at least share promos, because obviously you and your guests have excellent taste. In this week's Poly in the News, we are talking about getting a new poly flag, and there are some folks that are getting really serious about it.
Really serious.
Like they are putting
slides.
Shit together. They have slides, they have a plan, they have criteria, they have a project plan. I wouldn't be surprised if they had a Gantt chart. I mean, this shit is going down. I'll provide a link in the show notes. And if you are aware of what the poly flag looks like, it's a very unclear flag.
Well, one of how many?
That's true. There's a lot of different ones. The one I'm looking at in the article has blue, red, and black stripes, and there's a gold pi, like the mathematical symbol pi, like B.
It looks like a nerd designed a pirate ship flag.
It does, which I'm totally cool with. I like nerds, I like pirates, but it doesn't scream polyamory. So it says polyam proud, so polyam, A-M, as in Mike, proud. They have an Instagram, they have a pitch, they're putting it together saying, look, it's unclear, people don't know what it means, we don't know what it means, which is why people have been doing a bunch of different flags. So we need to agree on what a new flag would be. We need to design something that is compelling, clear, and that at least most people like, and then maybe retire the old flag. And they have a slideshow and everything, which is all I need.
And they're going to have a vote. You know, I'm at the 10,000 foot level. I don't really know anybody. I might end up having put my foot in my mouth when I say this, but it looks like a really good process and it looks like a really good goal. Hats off to you. I'm the grump in the corner that's like, fuck, I don't care, whatever. I do what you want to do. So having said that, I am favorably impressed and looking forward to the results.
Yes, and you're a project manager, so favorably impressing a project manager with your project plan, I think, is a very good thing. And I should mention I got an email just this week from Polyam Proud talking about this project and asking if I would participate. And I'm like, I'm not a designer, but I can tell you I can spot bad design and I can spot good design. So happy to shoot off my mouth with my opinion.
A note to my fellow white people. Let's talk about racism. Lots of white folk in particular have no idea what racism really is. Now, don't get me wrong. We are sure we are not racist, and we are certain that to be called racist is to be accused of one of the greatest offenses one can provide in the current day and age. But we don't really know what racism is, and we get it wrong all the time. For example, simply mentioning someone's race is not inherently racist. I've been at events where there was one black person attending, some meeting, convention, something, and I'm sure you have as well. Now, when the white folk are asking each other who remembers said black person's name, they're never gonna say, the one black person that was there. No, they're gonna be like, the guy that was wearing the shoes, Come on now. We can do better. There's nothing inherently racist in simply acknowledging somebody's racial identity or in seeing that there was one black person at any given event. In fact, seeing that truth is a necessary step to addressing it. Now, this is one of the fallouts of the mistaken perspective white people love to trot out when we say we don't see color. First of all, bullshit. You do too. We all do. The point is not to not see color. The point is to not impart moral judgments upon color. The point is to equitably distribute power and social resources regardless of color. The point is to right the historical and contemporary wrongs that were and are enacted based on color. To be colorblind is to be blind to the negative behaviors that are culturally focused on folk of color. If you can't see race, you can't see racism. You can't track the different lived experiences folk of different races have when they go to school, interact with the police, apply for credit, go shopping, attend their place of worship, and otherwise live day to day in our systematically racist culture. To be colorblind is to overlook the fact that Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and Tamir Rice all had something in common before the police killed them. My fellow white people, most of us don't know what we don't know about race and racism in the U.S. There is no shame in that. Just like there is no shame in using the wrong turn of phrase when we speak. The shame is in willfully maintaining that ignorance, in doubling down when our mistakes are pointed out to us, in propping up the social system that has made the average white household have 7.8 times the wealth of the average black household. Now here's the rub. While being afraid to simply mention someone's race, lots of us white folk aren't afraid of voting to forbid teaching critical race theory, of opposing Black Lives Matter, of saying why they think those statues should not be taken down. In other words, of actually taking positions that are racist, that support the status quo of unequal justice, unequal education, and unequal access to social standing demonstrated by the statues exalting slavers that you want to stay up. So what is racism? Go read How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi and let a black man teach you the answer to that question. But do listen to this fellow white man when he says most of us white folk don't really understand what racism is. We confuse intention with outcomes and think that if we don't intend to be racist, we can't possibly be racist. The truth is, intention is all but irrelevant, and we will all, at some time or another, be racist. Except that we will all make mistakes, my fellow white people, except that we have much to learn, and then resolve to do better every day. Listen to the black voices around you that are taking the time and effort to teach you. That's the point.
Nice job. And may I say, you are really getting your preacher tone on with that one. I feel like I should say amen.
Well, it just kind of worked out that way.
I know. I like that. Hey, if you have questions, comments, or feedback, call 802-505-POLY or email polyweekly@gmail.com and attach an MP3 file with your questions. To book us or anything that involves a calendar, please email lustyguy@polyweekly.com.
Today's topic comes to us in an email from CSB, who writes, I want to start by saying that I love the show, and that is always a good place to start.
We like that.
And it has been a major source of learning for me in my poly journey. My nesting partner and I would even listen together while walking the dog and talk through episodes when our schedules allowed us the time. But now it's my turn to ask for your wisdom in how to leave hierarchy behind. When my nesting partner and I met, we discussed how we had both been interested in polyamory, but hadn't had the chance to put it into practice. At the time, and as major newbies, we agreed to a hierarchy that I see now was a way to not work through our personal fears. Now, almost 2 years later, we share a home and some pretty great fur babies. I have an incredible boyfriend that I have fallen head over heels for, but I feel like I'm often forced to make him feel like a secondary partner to appease my nesting partner, even though I want them to both have equal footing in my life. I've grown to connect with the ideals of relationship anarchy and want to put it into practice. How do I begin the conversation with my nesting partner that I want to leave the hierarchy behind? Thank you so much for your input, your time, and having this resource for us all.
Well, thank you, CSB, for writing in. It's an interesting question. So I guess I'll start. A couple of the things we often say in our Poly 101 classes are, first of all, be brave and bring it up. If you feel that there's something you are feeling that needs addressing, it's on you to be brave and bring it up as soon as you possibly can. We also talk about ask for what you want and hear your partner's wants without making it about you, all of which I think are relevant here. And a super easy way to do it would be to basically tell your partner what you told us. You said, I feel like I'm sometimes, well, you said often, forced to make your partner feel like a secondary partner to appease my nesting partner. That would be a great way to bring it up with your nesting partner and say, hey, I'm feeling like I somehow unnaturally do these things to make my boyfriend feel like a secondary partner. And it may be that your nesting partner's like, why would you do that? That's just silly. Treat him like you treat me. That's fine. That could be the case. And I like that because it's an I statement and it's a statement about how you feel, which may not be reflected in actions or in your nesting partner's reality. So I think that language right there is a great way to bring it up. Now, if there is discomfort or some pushback from that, I think it would be interesting to try a modified and theoretical version of the and then what exercise. Now, regular listeners may recall that we recommend the and then what exercise to be able to pinpoint your fears when it comes to jealousy. The idea is, okay, I'm jealous of someone else, so what do I think is going to happen? Oh, I think my partner is going to leave me for that person, and then what? I will die homeless and alone. I mean, basically, you just keep asking and then what till you figure out what the real roots of your fears are, which when you name them out loud often makes them sound ridiculous. We might be able to take that and modify it to deal with this situation and ask, okay, so what benefit does hierarchy provide for me? So you both decided that you wanted to do something hierarchical when you started. So what was the benefit to that supposed to be? And has it been providing that benefit? Was it effective at providing that benefit? Well, when it's not effective at providing that benefit, what happens? Am I finding other ways to cope? And if we remove the hierarchy, what would that mean? So what am I afraid of will happen if we are not hierarchical anymore? And then think about, are there other ways to combat that fear? Are there any other coping mechanisms I've developed that I could then use to deal with any fears that come from not being in a hierarchical relationship? Another thing we talk about is regular check-ins. We do ours roughly weekly, and if you're doing regular check-ins, this might have come up already. I'm assuming since you wrote us, it hasn't, but if you are doing regular or weekly, monthly, whatever check-ins, it's probably a good time to start after you've brought this up because you're going to need them. What we typically do when we have a check-in is we always start off positive, right? So we talk about what's working well, or if there's anything we're particularly grateful for or appreciative of about our partner and our relationship. So basically just start off with a little bit of gratitude. It's nice to put things on that even footing. Also, if there's anything that you've been working on, maybe something that your partner brought up or you realized in yourself that you want to work on and you want to report progress on. Like, hey, I've been working on my communication. I've been working on bringing things up right away. And I feel like the last 2 or 3 times something has happened, I have brought it up sooner than I normally would have. And so go, yay me, and get that nice positive reinforcement from your partner. And if there is anything that your partner's been working on and wants to recognize progress on. And then also if there's anything else on your mind related to the relationship or not, and anything not working well that we should address. If this is a great time, if there's a small thing that's been bothering you, could be about a nesting issue like chores, could be about money, or it could be about the relationship itself. But this is when you bring that up and say, hey, I started noticing I'm feeling a little X when Y happens. And you don't have to solve anything right there, but this is just an informational session. Now, one thing that caught my eye in your question, CSB, was you used the word equal when you were asking, how do I begin the conversation with my nesting partner that I want to leave the hierarchy behind? So you said, I want them both to have equal footing in my life. And one of the things I do want to be cautious about, and just make sure that you're talking about an egalitarian system or equity instead of equality. A lot of times when people say equality, they think that means you have 2 nights a week and he has 2 nights a week. And they're both 2 nights, so that is equal. And I have to treat you both exactly the same. Well, no, it's not going to be equitable or fair if you treat both people exactly the same, because they're 2 different human beings with 2 different sets of needs. What you do want to do is treat the person the way they want to be treated. One person may want more time, one person may want less time, or it may be a specific type of attention rather than a specific amount of time. There are a lot of different things that people want. It's not about treating everyone the same, but making sure that everybody is getting their needs met to the best of your ability.
And then she looks at me meaningfully. To take my swing at the piñata here, I'm going to start out by doing something strange and directly answering your question, which for me, if anybody listens knows I never do that.
You should do that last.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When you say, how do I begin the conversation with my nesting partner that I want to leave the hierarchy behind? Well, if you are having these regular weekly check-ins, you've got a perfect time to do it. And if you have rituals surrounding these regular check-ins, to do them in ways that maximize everybody's security, now is the time to do that. So if you have a nice dinner, if you go for a walk with the dog, if you do it after some nice cozy sex, whatever it is. And if you don't have those things, it might not be a bad time to start doing those things. So you do it by simply opening your mouth and starting the conversation. Now, you might do a little inoculation. You might start out by saying, I want you to know that I treasure you every bit as much as I ever have, and that I love you every bit as much as I ever have, and that our relationship is every bit as important to me as it ever has been. But having said that, I want to look at this deep philosophical underpinning that we have and talk about it. Practice before you do it. Stand in the mirror and say it to yourself. Figure out how you can get the words that you're going to use in closest accordance with your true inner state. And then you just kind of do it. Now, having said that, I'm going to go ahead and do the Lusty Guy standard and start telling you things you didn't ask. My first thing is, I have a question for you. You wrote that you see now that imposing this hierarchy was a way to not work through your personal fears. So my question for you is, have you worked through your personal fears?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you guys have gotten a pretty good handle on that now? My bet, if I had to bet, is that probably not. But I'm just a cynical cuss that way, so we'll see. But that's a question for you. And if you have, make sure and point that out when you bring the topic up with your partner. Now, I'm also going to tell you that I read your whole letter, and not once did I see an example or a behavior of what is happening to make you feel like your people are not currently on equal footing in your life. So I'm going to encourage you to get very specific with your definitions and your behaviors that you're looking at. For example, I personally define hierarchy as the giving systematic preference to one person's desires, needs, and choices over another's. So if, for example, I have to get my nesting partner to approve and give their permission for any date scheduling with my other partners, I am systematically giving my nesting partner schedule preference. If I am not allowed to fall in love, right? That's an obvious one. If I am required to take phone calls from my nesting partner when I'm with my non-nesting partner, but forbidden from doing the other direction. So drill down to the specific behavioral examples that are coming out of the roots of the philosophy and the decision to be hierarchical. And then stop doing them. I know that sounds racy and everything, but once you've actually identified the behaviors in question, stop doing them. It will be a practice. There will be times you screw up. There will be rough moments. That's okay. When that happens, review it in your head, visualize yourself doing it the right way the next time, and be ready for the next time. But at heart, clearly identify the places where you have been expressing a hierarchy and behaving in hierarchical ways, and stop doing them. Now, I want to underscore Minx's point about the difference between equality and fairness. When we say we want equality, what we generally mean is we want equal consideration of our wants and desires. We want equal respect. We don't necessarily want equal outcomes. She who cannot be named, when she and I first started seeing each other, told me very clearly, I am a young mother, I have a husband, I have a partner, I have a set of twins, I have a budding career. I got time for maybe 1 or 2 nights a month for you. That's fine, no worries. I didn't feel any less equal for that. I was always going to be available, was always going to need. Well, that was many years and lots of love ago, and all good. So where I would be equal is when I called her and said, hey, something important is going on. My important thing was every bit as relevant as everybody else's important thing. And that's what matters.
You can join the community on Facebook at facebook.com/polyweekly, or Twitter at polyweekly or at cunning.minx, Instagram at cunning.minx, or on TikTok as at cunning.minx. Now, first, feedback section. For feedback for this episode, this is my opportunity to say I kind of messed up. So I played an audio feedback for episode 600 from a listener who liked the show and said she actually liked the politics segment but didn't want it to be part of Polyweekly, and she explained why. But lustyguy wasn't here for that episode, so I just played it without any response. And that really wasn't fair to her or to lustyguy. So I'd like to fix that, play it again, and then give lustyguy a chance to respond. If you don't want to hear it again, then you can just fast forward. It's about a minute long.
Hi there, Minx. I want to begin by thanking you for your podcast, for your time, and for your wisdom. I began listening to you in 2016, and by 2018, I had listened to every single episode at least once. I was also a poly playmate for 18 months. You have helped me so very much in my pursuit and teaching of polyamory. I sincerely value your viewpoint and your advice. I actually really love you a lot. I know you have been playing a lot of positive feedback about your political segments, so I just wanted to offer a dissenting viewpoint. Before I do, know that I stay up to date on politics and read and discuss the issues regularly. When I listen to your podcast, I am ready to learn, relax, and have fun. Listening to you is a way that I unwind and prioritize what's really important in my life, which is my partners and my career. I teach critical thinking and composition. One of the topics I introduce my students to is ethical non-monogamy, and I crave your perspective. I recommend your podcast to my students every semester, as well as your book, because I view you as an expert on polyamory. While I admire and respect your desire for change and your interest in politics, I wish you would start a new podcast to discuss that stuff. You always leave me wanting more, so to allocate part of your podcast to talk about anything other than poly is disappointing to me. Nevertheless, you can do no wrong, and nothing will make me stop listening to you. Thank you again, Minx, for everything you do.
Well, let me start out by recognizing the obvious brilliance and great taste of the caller. Thank you so much for being a supporter of the show and for saying such nice things and for stating your point clearly and eloquently. And it's a point that I can see. I don't think it is completely without merit or it's foolish. That's true. We all at some point need a respite. And I would encourage you to, if you feel that need, skip over the politics section. We have that silly little intro music there in no small part so that when you hear it, you can start skimming and fast forwarding. Now, having said that, to answer the inherent question of why do it, in short, 2 reasons. 1, extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures. And the truth of the matter is, in the United States right now, and indeed the world, we are facing extraordinary times in our political situation. And these are extraordinary times that are life and death issues for a lot of people. 2, I believe we all have a moral responsibility to use the platform we have to further the knowledge of these extraordinary times. I am not putting myself on the same kind of pedestal as those athletes who raised the black gloved fists in the Olympics all those years ago. I am saying there were lots of viewers who were unhappy that their escapist time in watching the Olympics was disturbed by the raising of that fist. I am saying that disturbance is the point. I'm sorry if it reduces your enjoyment, but only because I love Minx and I would hate to have people like her show a little less. The truth of the matter is, if it's disturbing to you, that's the point. And this is the microphone, the platform that I have. And those are the truths that I feel too many of us hide from. So I hear you. You're not wrong. You're just not enough right.
And to add to that, I would say, I think it would be really cool if you had your own politics podcast, but I don't think there's any way that either of us has time to produce a second podcast and promote and build up a following for a second podcast.
No, there's no way. And I mean, for that matter, I'd like to have a podcast on diving.
That's true.
And politics, but there's just no way.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if there's a sponsor out there that wants to
do a Lusty politics
underwrite
podcast,
such an endeavor, by all means, let me know.
There you go. We'll see if Rachel Maddow's interested.
Oh yeah, that's just
There
what
you
she
go.
needs is a cis straight white man on her show.
You know, I did want to point out, though, I know that it's not a perfect solution to say just fast forward through it. I understand you're saying you're in a zone and it's disruptive to have to stop what you're doing and look at the phone and fast forward. I will say that I do work hard to put a time code on each one of my segments. So one neat thing is that if you're listening through, say, Overcast or Apple Podcasts or what have you, you can hit that fast forward button and there should be a little area just above the fast forward button that tells you what the name of the segment is. So you just fast forward till you don't see Politics Corner anymore. And then you know you've missed it because we'll have the topic or whatever next. So I do try to make it super easy to skip sections that you don't like. Our next bit of feedback is from Lusty Guy's Politics Corner from episode 599 when he was talking about the Israeli-Palestine conflict.
They write, I'm a Dutch activist and I heard you asking for a book on Palestine. You were in luck. The Activist Bookmarks is offering this free ebook, and there's a description of the book and a link to it there.
And I'll put a link in the show notes. It's called Palestine, A Socialist Introduction.
I hope it will be of use. I agree that admitting a boundary in your knowledge can be healthy. Actually, I'm no expert in the topic either, but I've taken the stance that no people should be oppressed. I've read articles, went to meetings, listened to other activists, and tried to learn on the job, so to speak. Most of the times, activism has encouraged me to develop an opinion, and that way it empowers me. Maybe this is also a difference in socialization. I think those of us who belong to marginalized groups, women, people of color, physically, mentally challenged, LGBTQI+, might get more careful in expressing opinions because they are generally considered not to be an authority on the subject. I agree with you that openness and a willingness to learn can bring you a lot, but I also think taking a stance can be brave. If you do, you will be tested. It comes with a responsibility. So should the opinion and logic of the rulers. They should be held accountable to their policies and their words. When a movement rises up against them, that means a clashing of perspectives. In that sense, it is a process in which you can see ideas play out. And it also creates the space to learn and adapt to new ideas. So I think in a progressive movement, it is also possible to feed of opinions for self-development. So that was my 2 cents. Have a lot of fun in Hawaii. Greetings to the Minx also. You're both amazing, kind, and warm people. I enjoy the podcast a lot, and I'm also grateful that you have included this political segment. Honestly, at times I try to separate my political and private life, because things can get too much for me. So listening to podcasts on polyamory is kind of my safe space. But in the back of my head, I know very well they are connected. And I'm glad you two also care about the well-being of the world, both the inside and the outside, as much as I do. With kind regards, hello from Amsterdam. P.S. If you're ever in the area, let me know. Thank you so much for taking the time to write in and recommending the book. I will certainly check it out. Your letter reminded me of that famous quote, "We must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented." Elie Wiesel. And the only thing that also comes into my mind is the famous quote that I refer to all the time. We must be very, very careful, for if we don't know where we're going, we just might get there. Mm-hmm. And when I don't know enough to open my mouth, I try to keep it closed. In my better moments, in any case. But thank you very much for the book. I really enjoy the recommendation, and I will check it out. And as it turns out, I will be in Amsterdam in October.
That's
so
true.
Drop me a line.
It's time time for your Happy Poly Moment of the Week, brought to you by fubbly polyamorists everywhere.
This is kind of a long Happy Poly moment, but it's pretty nice. And it's another one from Europe. We got a lot from Europe this time. This is from Elbereth, who says, not long ago, I found out I've always been poly but never have admitted it to myself until recently. The more I kept reading about it and taking a look into it from my friends and their lifestyle, the more I felt it was something I belonged to. I fell in love with my now partner, who's been poly for quite some time and has been extremely patient, sweet, and assertive with me about polyamory, even before we decided to start a relationship. Let's call them pink for my partner and blue and navy for their other partners, which is their favorite colors. And you can call me red. I like that rather than letters. Makes it a little easier. So Pink has been living with Blue for a good amount of time, moving out to another country, and Navy did as well with their partner to another continent. We've been far from each other for years, always hanging out first as friends, and now we're all in a really nice and soothing dynamic. The thing that I like the most about this is that even though I didn't know Pink's partners that much before, they've been extremely supportive and delightful. We're always rooting and helping each other, even playing video games together or calling each other, whether Pink is around or not. When I decided to take a step further to ask Pink if they wanted to begin a relationship with me, because it was kinda already like that in my eyes, both Blue and Navy were encouraging Pink, who was extremely anxious, as they wanted to ask me the same, but were concerned about having consent from them, which, as you see, went smoothly. They both also came privately to tell me they were very happy and excited about the future altogether. I can't explain how blessed I feel about having such incredible people in my life. We're always there for each other, doing silly stuff together despite the distance, and even though there's still a lot to do, we're all looking forward to having what we call the happy life in the woods together. And whenever that happens, I will for sure let you know that we succeeded. Because despite all the incredible hardships we've been through outside our relationship, we grew resilient and unconditional towards one another out of every situation. So for me, it's safe to say that despite it all not being la vie en rose, and that difficulties will probably keep coming and going, this is probably one of the things I've been most confident and comfortable with in my life. What they made me understand is that no place can be more of a home than where your heart belongs. I wish you a happy life and hoping you find this a bit of a happy poly moment. Greetings from sunny Europe, Elbereth.
Aww.
It does make a bit of a happy poly moment. Just lovely. Well, thanks, Elbereth and Hellas and everyone, and CSB, everyone, for writing in to help make our episode today. And thanks to our playmates for their generous donations this week. We do keep Polyweekly a free resource. We've helped hundreds of thousands of people navigate their introduction to and continued success with polyamory. And those donations keep the podcast free for everyone, both inside and outside the community. Thanks to you, dear listeners, for, well, listening and for telling your friends about Polyweekly. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, it's not all about the sex.
All right, so we're trying to come up with a title.
I forgot to name the show. So
right.
How about
and you want, so I think the leading contender right now is transitioning from hierarchy.
So it's from hierarchy to equality, or from hierarchical to egalitarian, or
hierarchy to egalitarian, hierarchy to equality in 3 easy steps.
Is it 3 easy steps?
No, but it's a funny title.
It is a funny title.
I like it.
Growing out of hierarchy. I like transitioning out of hierarchy, or transitioning from hierarchy to
sounds like gender assignment surgery.
Egalitarianism. That's the thing. It does sound like a gender issue, because when people say transitioning to now, they usually mean, but what they're doing is changing from hierarchical to non-hierarchical poly, but I don't like saying non-hierarchical, plus it's hard to say non-hierarchical.
Hierarchy to equality in 3 easy steps. Boom.
How about but is it 3 easy steps?
No, it's why it's funny.
If we promise 3 steps, we have to deliver 3 steps.
Not if it's funny.
Okay. What was the title again, but without the 3 steps part? That I hate.
Hierarchy to equality.
So how about from hierarchy to equality?
Sure.
Okay, now that sounds like Buzz Lightyear to infinity and beyond.
That's why you need the 3 easy steps.
From hierarchy and beyond. Ooh, beyond hierarchy. That makes me sound like a yoga retreat or something.
Total new age. Total new age.
All right, so what have we decided on? How about moving from hierarchy to equality?
Leaving hierarchy behind.
Does that sound judgmental?
End of hierarchy. No more hierarchy. Hierarchy be damned.
Fuck hierarchy.
Fuck hierarchy. Post hierarchy.
But they're not post yet.
I've said the word so many times I can't say it anymore.
They're in hierarchical relationship. How do I move to a relationship? How do I transition that into a relationship that isn't hierarchical or that is more egalitarian?
Well, you're just presuming it's egalitarian. Maybe she wants to, what else is there besides hierarchy and egalitarian, I suppose? I don't know. I'm just being an ass now. I like from hierarchy to equality in 3 easy steps. That one's just got me. Get rid of the 3 easy steps and from hierarchy to equality also.
Okay. All right. So from hierarchy to equality. And are we okay with equality instead of egalitarian?
Yes, for sure. Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh.
Because the challenge with equality sounds like equal, and we tend to use egalitarian when
egalitarian, but it doesn't flow, man.
It doesn't flow. I know.
We need the flow.
See, you think that creating a title is so easy? It's not easy.
I always say naming a product is the hardest part of making a product.
I'm terrible at naming things. It's true. That's why I have you.
The hardest part. In our mind now, this will always be hierarchy to equality in 3 easy steps. This is how
in your mind.
You and I, well, when you need to refer to this episode, you're going to have to call it that, or I will never know what you're talking about.
So can I go back to suggesting moving from hierarchy to equality?
Sure. I don't care.
Or shifting?
At this shifting. Fine.
Shifting sounds better. I like shifting. Shifting from hierarchy to equality.